Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Judith Briles, and we're back for another episode of AuthorU, Your Guide to Book Publishing. And I have back once again the awesome Jules Marie. And she has a whole bunch of things underneath her name that she can do, from digital marketing strategist, from press release strategist, because she's doing that, which is what we're going to do today. And that she's also someone who's judged over 2,000 books in award competitions. So she's out there. If you want to know more about Jules Marie and what she can does and do for you, you find her at 33words.us. 33words.us. And we have that. So with that, let's get back to the podcast, our show. We're both video and audio. And I always want to thank the people who make this possible. So that's certainly AuthorU.org, which is a membership organization for authors who want to be seriously successful. If you're just a diddler, if you think you're going to sell just a couple of books, this is not where you should be. Because you have a team of people, you have a community that really want to help you soar and that. So that's AuthorU.org. And then there's my company, The Book Shepherd, which I like to say, I'll show you how to create a book you don't regret. You don't have to apologize for, which, by the way, I can tell you, of the 18 books I published with New York, there is only one I did not apologize for. Whether it's the cover, whether it's the back cover copy, which we're going to kiss on today because press releases can tie into that. And there's just so much more. And then, of course, there's Rebecca Finkel from that is multiple. Both are designers who are sponsors, Rebecca Finkel and Nick Zellinger. Rebecca is at FPGD. I always say that's feeling pretty good day. I think of her and remember my letters go in the right place. So fpgd.com. Nick Zellinger is Nick Zellinger.com or nzgraphics.com. Both amazing book and cover and interior designers. Rebecca also does websites and lots of swag for authors. So as always, we start with a quote from my book, How to Create Snappy, Sassy Success for Authors and Writers. And since we're talking about words today, I thought dullness is as dullness does. You've got to snap, crackle, and pop your words. And I can't think of anything better to bring that over to connect with than a press release. It does not have to be boring. It does not have to be dull, but there are essentials you must have. So Jules Marie is going to show us all about that. Her superpower, she's got a lot of them, and it's combining the social media, the digital marketing, publicity, and creativity. And when it comes to press releases, guess what? That all is going to come into play. So, Jules, let's just jump in. Where are we going to start?
So I wanted to start, and thank you again, Judith, for having me. Yes, it's always a pleasure to be here because I love how we can, toss ideas around and come up with even more than maybe either of us were thinking of to begin with. So I hope we also find nuggets in these.
Can get us into more trouble. Yes.
So one thing I tell my clients is that I think of the marketing trifecta, right? There are things you have to do to get your brand, your book, your business, your product, your jewelry, whatever it is. There are things you have to do to get noticed. And of course, social media is one of them. So
Mhm.
the trifecta I think of as three things. You have your organic content, right? What you're posting on social media. And you have your paid, like you might be buying a Google ad or a Meta ad. And then you have the third piece, which is your publicity. And I find, this is just my opinion, uh, authors skip that part. They're like, well, I wrote a book. Who should I, tell?
Mhm.
I feel like the book is out and now they're like, I don't know what to do now.
Oh, they
And
watch that movie, Jules. If you build it, they will come. Not always.
yeah, you have to be able to do the work. And I feel like I should interrupt for just a moment because we've had a very big snowstorm here, and I believe I have a neighbor who's going to be plowing, and my dogs might
You
bark.
know what? I want you to tell you, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Usually that Zoom is pretty good about not picking up some of that filtered noise.
Well,
So just keep going.
dogs might go crazy. So, but anyway, I feel like it's important not to overlook the writing of the press releases and reaching out to the media. So that's the piece of the trifecta that we're going to talk about today. And so I did a workshop in December that I'm sort of wanting to follow today, and it was how to prepare your press releases for 2025. So my overall strategy is to send them once a quarter. Right there, that should go into your marketing strategy calendar, right? And
Mhm.
not the same one, but what we're looking for always, what drives the press release, the interest in the media is driven by the hook. What is so special that you're sending this information out to the media? It's what we call the hook, right, Judith? It's what, like, we're trying to reel them in, right? And so
It's the words. They were back to my quote. They can't be boring.
and the subject, the heading, I mean, it starts with
Yes, the
the
heading.
heading. It starts with a cool logo, maybe you add at the top, something that's really going to grasp their attention. And no matter how you send it, which we'll talk about this, we're going to break it down. The person who is a human being, typically, who sees press releases still these days, not robots. And
Mhm,
it's the person assigned to the news desk. It could be an
mhm,
intern, a volunteer. You're not necessarily getting it to the reporter of your dreams. Okay. It's
mhm.
going to be vetted before it goes on. And so some of these places, it could be hundreds that they're getting a day. And so somebody is responsible for going through them. And you've got to be writing something short and sweet and super compelling. And I'll stop there because I know Judith has something to add.
Oh, well, I think that I am all into pitching and hooking because your pitch has the hook in it. And usually short is better,
Mhm,
definitely on that. But
mhm.
what you've got to do is it's got to have lines and an action line. And I'm going to make a suggestion to all of you on here. If you don't know, I mentioned it before in many other podcasts. If you are not using AM Institute, Apple Mary, aminstitute.com, and you click on their headline analyzer, I am now opening the window for you. That and one of the things, and they do the ranking. They rate them. They get a percentage rating from anywhere from 0 to 100 on
Hmm.
emotional or intellectual or spiritual or emphatic. And you have to understand, what your book's about. A spiritual book will be much more intellectual, emphatic than maybe an emotional on that. So you have to understand who's your book for, okay, and bring that in. But then you can check it out. And the scoring is that you don't want anything under 30, 30. Nothing doesn't count. And it was we did this amazing experiment today because I just finished my cookbook, Jules. Literally done, cover, back, and my designer says, look, I know you're going to sleep on it, you're going to wake it. No, I'm done. I am done. I've done that and gone through it. But one of my wake ups was, I don't think my sub is just quite right. I don't think it's quite right. So I went in and I started playing around with and I said, I'm going to try this one. And I got a 50. Well, that's a runaway keeper. And then I thought, well, what if I change my adjective in it? What if I just add one more thing in it? It went to 60 joules. 60. That's a keeper. And
That
understanding it.
is so cool. You get the score with, because like a lot of those
And
AI
why? And the
programs,
why.
you just see that they give you these four suggestions and you're like, well, I don't really, and why would you give me those suggestions? But you're getting sort of graded on what you're writing. So I think, yeah, I think that could really help because the headlines drive the open
Yes,
rate in
exactly.
everything, including your newsletters, your blogs, your captions that you
Oh,
write.
okay, so let me add one other thing. One of my assistants, one of my VAs, said, "Hey Judith, can you mind if I put this in?" And just knowing what the theme of is on this, put it into Chat GPT. And I said, okay, because I don't use, I,
Right.
I'm an original girl. All right. So I don't use it. And it came back and like, 10 of them. And I said, well, this is interesting. So I ran each one of them through the Institute. Nothing, nothing scored over 22. Nothing. So
Yeah.
limp.
I
You
think
and
I think what I would say about when the authors are writing their press releases, they have to feel like a person is writing them. Again, we always talk about making that emotional connection where you are trying to connect with a reporter who wants to write about you, interview you. You need those words that make an impact. And so again, this program Judith mentions, I think is really useful for everybody to look into. She said aminstitute.com, because what you're getting is a scoring piece that says, yeah, this is good. This is good. It happens with newsletters. I'll resend a newsletter and the AI, the bot will appear and say, maybe if we change your heading a little. And I'm like, okay, because they're resending to all the people who didn't open it. Right. And so that's really where the press release starts. That's with the heading for sure.
So the bottom line here for all of you, again, it's amapplemaryiinstitute.com. Make it one of your go-to tools. And then I'm going to give them, since we're talking about words, and I'm assuming you know about Word Hippo. Jules, are you
Yes,
familiar with
I
Word
do.
Hippo? I love Word Hippo.
Mm-hmm.
Wordhippo.com. And if you're looking for some variations of words, it takes your thesaurus into another dimension.
And
So
again, though, I really want to caution that when you read it, it sounds like something you words you would
absolutely.
use. That's the most important thing. I
Yeah.
read something the other day and I was like, what does this even mean? And so you want it to be clear, concise,
Mhm.
clever, but also compelling, right? You want to reach out. Let's go
Well,
to
look at
this,
you, Jules. Clear, concise, clever, and
clever,
compelling.
compelling. I probably wouldn't remember that. Let's I know we have a lot to cover in
Yeah.
time, but um sort of I want to look at so I want you to imagine 4 press releases. What are you going to write? Let's say you have one book, okay? And you think, well, one book I can write one. No. What is it about the book? Is it a group that it's helping? Is it a theme that is particularly important to something? Like maybe you've written a book that's Western themed. So maybe you've sent it, you've been posting about it, but now you're going to write a press release and send it out to, I'm thinking out loud, Western themed publications, right? So it's not just writing it, there's a process. So I want to talk about choosing the hook, um, writing the PR, because there are templates that we follow, and I can help you with that. And what you include in it, for sure, sure. But what goes in that piece, right? And then how to distribute them. So for the hook, we kind of talked about that. The words, the headlines, it's just got to be like Judith said, the sub. She was having a hard time in the sub. So when we write a press release, the way I do them, the way I see sort of this template I follow, there's a headline and a subheading because we're trying to grab them twice. That's the way I do it, right?
Yeah.
Because I need, it's like, this is my grab, this is my touch. I need to make that connection. And then my very first opening sentence never says something like, come join us on February 14th at 6 p.m. No, that's not compelling. They're going to be like, oh, it's another Valentine press release, and it might get tossed. And so you need to go in with the words that are going to trigger them. And they're like, oh, this is something our publication would want to cover, our readers would want to know about, our viewers would want to hear about, right? And so the hook is like, I work with a variety of clients, including a large nonprofit, and we worked on this task last year, like what are we going to write about? And even though we identified 6 topics, but even when we met yesterday, we're honing down what this quarter topic is going to be. And I suggested a personality, actually the person who runs the whole program. And she's
Mm,
super shy. And I'm like, but we are going to reach high and go for something like People Magazine or New York Times. They have coverage for extraordinary, but ordinary people. And this
mhm,
person we feel is the face behind this amazing work that's being done. So you want to be thinking like, yeah,
mhm.
maybe like Judith and I are in Colorado, maybe 5280 wants to report on this book, but maybe this Western publication who reaches people who are really interested in my book who are more likely to buy it. So as you're writing the press release, you're thinking, like as Judith said, who's your audience? Who are you trying to grab? Is it
Mhm.
what kind of a mystery is it? What kind of a Western is it? What kind of a love story or romance is it? What's different about your romance? Because, and I mean this nicely, the press receive a lot of press releases about a variety of topics, and they're going to get a book, and that's why you opened with you know, so and so just published a romance book. No, that's another book. So we need to tie it into something, right? Readers,
So maybe you're referring to an event or an activity that is going in that would ring a bell.
or even those people who have they've reached to like Judith, when we talked about the awards the other day, maybe so and so, won the IPPY award. And so yeah, you better be sending a press release about that.
Mhm.
So that'll go into your planning. And you just have to think of how you can interest the media in what you're doing, especially when your book is fresh, right? Not 2 years or 3 years down the road when you think, oh, I want to re-promote my book. Well, if you reprinted it and it's got a new copyright date and an updated copyright date, yes. But after your book's been published, you kind of, and I say this nicely, you want to hammer the media, with what it's about, how it can help the community, that you've donated 100 books to a school, something like that. You are looking for these hooks. Okay. So that's the number one thing. So go, Judith.
Well, I would, I love the idea of quarterly because people can breathe on that. I'm more aggressive, that,
Monthly.
I would be going at least monthly. Especially you're in this window. Here we are in 2025, this new year, that if your copyright dates, it's going to be either 24 or 25. I mean,
Right.
it's already,
Two.
if it's 24, it's already old. Hate to say that, people,
Ish,
but
ish, ish.
yeah. And so what can you do to keep it going? And there are a lot of things that you can reach out to. This is when Jules will have her publicity side on what else is going on that maybe we can
Right.
coattail or tag.
Hmm. Right.
So that is really what you're after. And each book is going to be unique. And a lot of times people think, Jules, I know because I've heard it. But it's so much easier to get publicity for nonfiction. You know,
No, you
it,
just have to let that go. You just have to write the
yeah.
press release and not think about the competition. You have to
Mhm.
think about, I'm talking to the author. You have to think about why you wrote your why you wrote that book, what motivated you, where your passion came from, how you like I did create you identified with a certain character persona and you created that personality and you gave them that name, and so you have to take all of the passion that you had as an author when you created it and create it into these press releases because you want to get noticed. It's important. And also, like Judith just said something important. I wrote down how to keep it going. We can talk about that,
Yeah.
like,
The momentum.
well, maybe you go, I often think when it comes to the distribution piece, you distribute your press locally to, magazines, newspapers, radio, TV in your area, and then regional, like maybe Colorado Lifestyle Magazine, Denver Life, 5280, and then maybe national, and then maybe you're going to target, like, I'll use that Western example again. Um, you're going to be sending it out. Maybe I'm thinking of a company here. She does leather, beautiful purses, with fringe and embedded with, like gemstones, like turquoise. Her work, it's stunning. Her work would
Mhm.
be perfect in a Western style magazine because those kind of people, they want that sort of purse, right? So probably not, it just varies. So you always, so how you keep it going is every month, maybe you continue to identify new markets. So let's go back to what you're how to write the press release. Just in a simple sentence, there are templates to follow. And on my website, I have at least 2 blogs. I'll go in today and move them up to the top so you don't have to search for them. And they're both about how to write a press release. And one of them is, might be 2 about writing a press release. One is also about distributing it online. So we'll talk about that in step 4. So it's easy to follow the template. It's like a heading, a subheading, a date line, a hook, a paragraph, a paragraph, a paragraph, an end, which we call the boilerplate. And that's where all of your information about your website and everything lives. But you need to come up with 4 to 5 short paragraphs. And so number 3 is, what's in those paragraphs? What are you including? I always include a quote. So if I am writing about anybody, sometimes my client and I, we make up a quote, right? But it's something that they would have said. It's something that, or maybe we're using a testimonial from an artist that we work with, or a review that was written on Goodreads, for instance. And for that, I would always get permission. If it's somebody outside of the brand, the author's brand, I would, and if it's like somebody on, like I just said, Goodreads, I would not put that out in a press release unless you had permission to include it. But the quotes are interesting because they always add credibility. So that first, let's say you've hit it and your first paragraph has got the hook. It's very interesting. The second, third paragraph, you don't want anything that includes dates and that sort of information. If it's the 2nd annual, 3rd annual, 4th annual, yes, say that, but don't go into the days and all that. Wait for that at the end. So now, you know, what's important about what it is that you're doing? Are you donating to the community? Is it a first ever event? Like right now I see there's a lot of music events going on to raise money for some of the fire victim, you know, the fire victims in the LA area. And so I'm seeing a lot of that. I've seen some press happening around that. So what are you putting in there that continues to draw in the media, right? Your 2nd and 3rd paragraph is, it has keywords, but it also has emotion, communication, connection, like why it's important, why you're letting them know about this. And I call it the value added info. You just keep sort of giving them more to think about. And then the very last sentence has the, you know, the museum hours will, you know, the winter museum hours will now be such and such, and the event will be held such and such, and blah. And then at the very end, and you'll see this again, my website's 33words.us. And in this how to write a website, you'll see, or a press release, the very end we call the boilerplate. It says about Judith Briles. And then there's a description. Judith has been writing for X amount of years, and she this and that and the other, and she's published 108 books. And
yeah, right.
I had to say that. And her website is so-and-so. For interviews or photos, I never just say for more info. My boilerplate always says for interviews or photos, because that's like the last thing, if they've gotten that far and they're like, "Ooh, photos, we love those." You know, yeah, maybe we do want to interview her. So here's the purpose of sending it. This is what you're going for. Your goal of packing all this information, please, into just one page, is because you want somebody from, let's say, westernmagazine.com to call you, to interview you, get more information. And now maybe they're going to write a feature article about their beautiful purses that are being made in this tiny little town where I live. And 1,200 words with 46 photos. And maybe you're getting 2 pages, right? A spread. And they would not have gotten that if they hadn't sent the press release out to somebody they thought was interested. And it's all done by email. So there's no, you might get rejected, but you're not like one-on-one with someone. I know it can be hard to sell yourself, but your press release is all about selling what you do. So that's 1, 2, 3, the hook, the templates, the value added info, which also includes the boilerplate, which once you write it, you don't need to rewrite it. So that kind of helps. That's 1/5 of the
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And then
I have
let's
it
talk a
on
little
your
more
template
about distributing. Go
because
ahead.
on the template, people always wonder at the very end, your end piece, for interviews, about you, maybe about you as a bio, if this is about you as the author, or the book. Maybe the book is one of series I mean, you can have whatever you want to do there. But people wonder, do they end their press release with the 3 hashtags, and then they add that after that, or do you want to see that before?
It's five pound signs. That's always, that means stop to the media. So let's say you send in a public service announcement to the radio. That's kind of where it came from. Those were the pound sign. It means
Mm-hmm.
stop. That's the end. There's nothing else to go on. So yeah, that comes in after the boilerplate. Mhm. Um, I find them
So,
interesting to write. I
so is
find
but wait a minute, is it after the 5 pound signs or is it before
the
the five
five
pound signs?
pound signs end the press release. There's nothing after the pound signs.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So you've written everything. You have your boilerplate about Judith Briles and her 108 books, and then pound, 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 pound. That's the end. And there are various ways to do it, but the reason for following the template is because that's what the media is looking for, right?
Yes.
There's a
Yes.
certain style that like they know they're trying to do it different isn't going to win anything. They know where to look for the salient information, and that's why you want to put it in this order. And I've helped a lot of clients, like we'll brainstorm, we'll get on a call, and I'll start sort of creating a draft, and then they're like, oh, I get it now, and they start filling in more of the pieces of it, right? And the boilerplate might say their company was founded by their great great grandfather in 1928, and they're like, wow, that's something I never even thought of including. So the boilerplate can include, I find, some really interesting information that will apply to any press release you write within this year, and doesn't have to be a part of because that gives the, let's say, Channel 9 reporter all the information they now need to contact you now, because they don't ever want to contact you and ask a stupid question, right? When did you start your business? Because it's already right there. Well, what kind of books you write? Maybe you've already included the titles of the books that you've written, and this is the third in the series. So it helps to write these press releases because whoever gets it assigned to them is going to contact you, and they will be prepared. They will be prepared. That's what I always find. If you have an event and you've invited them all to come to your event and nobody responds, they might still show up. Sometimes they've got a spot in their day. And I did this once with a storytelling conference I was in Denver, Union Station. Nobody replied. And then on the third day, Channel 9 showed up, the reporter, the cameraman, everything. And I just was beguiled. I was beguiled. There's a good word. I was like, look, sure. I was just, because you just want it to work.
You
And
do. Jules, we had that happen with the Hall of Fame, the Authors Hall of Fame, in our first year. One of the things that was really fun, that we used in the press release, that the Colorado Authors Hall of Fame is the first Hall of Fame for exclusively for published authors in the country. We were the first. And I had sent it out, and the last press release I was sending out. So I mean, every week I sent a press release out every week leading up to the formal induction, and on which taboo, but I did it like on a Thursday, and maybe it was a Friday. I can't remember because the gala induction was Saturday, and my headline had, "If you're tired of reporting murders and mayhem," and I tied it into celebrating Colorado's authors of distinction. So whatever it was, I did.
right,
But
right. Giving them news.
I did have murder and mayhem in it. And CBS showed up, just like you said. CBS showed up. I had no idea, with the cameraman and their crew, and we ended up leading the 10 o'clock news that night.
Yeah.
I mean, how
And,
cool was
and
that?
And that's what you don't know what you're going to get. You might get, and
Yeah,
basically it's 90 seconds to, 3 minutes on the news. It might be an interview. It might be, like I said, a feature article. It might be, you might join a podcast. You could have a number of
mhm,
things happen. You don't really know who's going to
exactly.
be interested, and you don't give up.
Exactly.
You just
And
don't
that's
give
what's
up.
and that's what's really, really cool about this. I mean, you don't know. Most likely they either contact you if they're interested or it goes in the slush pile.
Yeah.
And all that. But
Mhm. You just
I
never
said,
know. You just
yep,
it's again, it has to be part of your trifecta when you're creating your marketing
yep,
strategy. How
yep,
often will you post here? What will you be posting about? What's your
yeah,
strategy for LinkedIn? What's your strategy for publicity? You
yep.
have to work it into the plan. And again, often I see the authors publish the book, it's done, they've been promoting it throughout writing it, and now you have to do more. This first year is really important to get the word out and make it those additional sales. Those if somebody, let's say somebody writes about you in 5280 magazine, now people who love reading Colorado literature, Colorado, if it's been written here, those people are going to potentially buy your book. Maybe you were interviewed. Maybe they just did one of those, the little square review, right? But it's got a link in it to your website. And so even a
Exactly.
little piece like that, and maybe they never contact you, but all of a sudden someone says, "Hey, I heard about you in 5280." And you're like, "You did?" Right? So it, and you always do want to ask when you make a new connection, how did you hear about me? So that way you'll be able to keep tabs on what results did your press release bring?
Well, we had Westward, which is a major player
Right.
here in Colorado, did a great article. The Denver Post picked it up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had coverage. And it wasn't and it was a couple of columns. So we got coverage and we do it and we keep going out and we also for the hall of talking about the Hall of Fame. I mean, the governor comes in and proclaims the day we do the induction as the Authors Hall of Fame Day. The mayor of Denver does it. The mayor of Aurora does it. I mean, I mean, I go after them all for that, and we take those.
So
They're
is it
really
a
actually,
proclamation? A proclamation is issued?
yep,
I
yep. They issue
remember once having to get those. That's right. That's pretty cool.
and they're
Uh,
beautiful. They're
it's
beautiful.
a certificate. It's got a seal on it and a signature. Yes, I know.
Absolutely long, and we would literally take those and blow them up for foam boards and have them at the event so people
Right,
could see
right.
them.
So let's segue into what you're talking about, because this is point four is where do you, now you've written this wonderful little tiny story about yourself, where are you sending it? So you're hearing Judith talk about the governor and the mayor. Maybe that might not be your piece, but she also mentioned the Denver Post covered it and Westward. And so now you have to create a media contact list. It's up to you to create a media contact list. And again, to me, it has certain I try to cover everything. So again, local. Who's right here in my backyard? Who's right here? Am I in Boulder, Denver? Am I in Greeley? Am I in Fort Collins? Who's right there? What publication or radio station is really popular? I go
Mhm.
local, and then I break out regional. I go into Colorado. I go into national, and then I get real specific. And when I send the press release, let's say now I'm sending it to a Western publication, I
Mhm.
might change it up a little at the beginning. My audience has really changed. If I'm now targeting specific Western publications, let's say I've got 6 to 8 of them on my radar, and it's not the same headline I might be sending to 5280 or Colorado Lifestyle Magazine. Now it's about lifestyle, maybe fits into the cowboy or cowgirl culture, right? And something more specific, how it fits with them. So sometimes when I reach into that bigger group, like I've sent press releases to Oprah, Ellen when she was in business, I've sent them to Cosmo, I've sent to everybody. Sometimes I just have to change up that beginning. And so you have to think about that when you go bigger. But let's ask Judith, how did you find, or how do you want to tell people how to find the contact information for the Denver Post or Westward? If they've never found it,
Mhm.
how do they find it?
Well, first of all, I want to just re-support you. You start local, and then you go regional, then you go your state. You may want to do some adjacent states because some of these states, the big box states, people are away, but that, East Coast, Northeast, you hit them all. You hit them all. So, you go to the Google and you put in. I would start with, because I'm a big believer in tapping into the weeklies. Excuse me. And I've got great contacts. In fact, one of our media partners is a weekly. They do full spreads. These weeklies are the old-fashioned bigger
Right, right. I
papers.
know. Yeah, they're a vertical longer.
That's right. And we have often got a whole page on our event when we do it from them, which is very cool. So they get things ongoing. And I go into the Google and I just start looking up what are the weeklies in Colorado. All right. And bang, it comes up. The second thing is then now I am going to create an Excel sheet. I start it that way. I
Right.
have the
Me too.
name. I go in and I look who the person is because it'll tell you where to send news. They're very good about doing that. And then
Yes.
you have an email address, and you may even have a phone number. If I've got the physical address, I take that, and we just have it spread out. So
Yes.
eventually, I put that in, and this is what I have both national. We reach out nationally, as well as Colorado centric, and that where I live and do my events and things.
Right.
And we literally have them in our CRM, our customer relations manager software, and they are labeled
Right.
Colorado Media.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
I do it for radio and I do it for um, TV. I mean, I do them all. I do
Okay.
them all.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but thank you for jumping in there with that. But that is what you
Mm.
want to do is as you're creating a list and you have to work the list,
Yes.
when you
Oh
send
yeah.
the email, does it get rejected? You might have to update the list.
Yes. Oh
But
yeah. And it
she
will.
uses Google. What I typically do is once I get the name of the company, yes, when the website opens, I usually jump down to the footer, the very bottom, because the contact information will be there. Because
Mhm.
you'll get down a bunny trail, watch, reading all the news, but go down to the footer and
Okay.
it'll
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
contact us. And usually the newsroom page will open up.
Yep. And it also, in most print publications, they actually will have a page there's like a column. It's usually in the gutter, actually,
Right,
inside of
right.
how to contact us from the editor in chief to whatever. I even had a situation where I sent out, I remember this one because I really took offense with this what person was in the Rocky Mountain News, I think at the time when we had the Rocky Mountain News here, and they were talking about how horrendous all self-published books are. And I said, wait a second, wait a
No,
second.
no.
That is so not true. And I really went after them. I actually got a call from another paper here in Colorado, and I sent it as a letter to the editor. I had a call from other newspapers saying, can we reprint what you did in our paper? So you never know.
Right, right, right. Well, and so you're going to build your list, and the last piece of your list you may not have thought about is
Uh-huh.
distributing it through online press
Yes.
release distribution services. So, as an example, one of the more popular ones, and I'm not an affiliate, I just want to
Yeah.
tell you about it. Also, I have a blog on my website about, again, I think I've listed at least 20 different online press release distribution sites. It's a big word. But here's what happens. You write that press release, okay? And I'm going to use the example of PR Web. I don't know exactly, but I think it's 129. Let's say it's 130 for you to upload your press release to their site, and they
Mhm.
distribute it to people you would have never thought of.
Mhm.
Where do you think all that news in the world comes from? These press releases go into these online sites and they get this, depending on who the site is and what you're paying, they get distributed to a variety of people, maybe over 100. PR Web will tell you who they're distributing it to. And they also have a plan. For 130, you'll reach these people. For 500, you'll reach these people. For, so there are
That's
other,
a lot.
and
Yeah.
there are, it's rare you'll find a free plan. And to you, isn't it worth spending something like $130 and suddenly some out of the way place maybe either publishes your press release or calls you for an interview? You don't know. So to me, 130, and I don't know the cost, but that's what it was the last time I looked. And I thought that has, in my mind, is part of the marketing strategy. You might as
Hmm.
well upload it to the online sites. There's every reason to reach places you will never think of.
Hmm.
You won't.
Well, there's also the couple free ones I do recommend is pr.com and prlog.com. That you can go out free that way. There's also a way you can create and it might take your PR release, also convert it into a little story article. If you've
Oh,
got it
right.
quotes already and doing that. Again, I'm going to say because I know Colorado, and in Colorado, the Denver Post has your hub. Your hub is their online variable in addition to the regular Denver Post, but they actually print out they cherry pick a lot of the items that get submitted to yourhub.com and they print it on Thursdays in the regular paper as a
Right,
supplement
right, right, right.
that goes in. And there are ways that you can do. I actually had them call me one time saying that when someone got the press release, that we sent to the Denver Post, someone called from the Denver Post said, Judith, write up this as an article and get it submitted because we would pick it up and carry it into here.
Right,
So
right.
you never know.
And sometimes, like, you do have to react quickly. They might want something right away because you hit them at the right time. And it
Oh
might be
yeah.
where they're like, "Oh, I'm interested for this down the road." That's if you're doing your sort of local connection. With online press releases, you don't have connection with anyone. You don't know what's going to happen once they send it out.
Hmm.
And they may deny, like PR Web, one of these places, they might deny it. It can't just be a buy my product press release.
Yeah.
Those aren't going to fly. Buy my book, not going to fly. That's, you
No.
could put information in the boilerplate that your books are
Hmm.
available in Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and select retailers, but you don't want to make it salesy. It will be rejected by most of those online
Hmm.
sites. So that's
One yeah, one of the headlines I use, if this was about me, local author wins 12 national book awards. That got picked up.
well, trust me, it'll get picked up if your local author wins one national book award too.
But I had
Well,
one book that was on a roll.
congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are things that you can do here. I mean, we're not and really everything Jules said, everyone, this is not rocket science. This is not. You don't need an advanced degree. What you need to do is have the right words and get them out. And it's always about, I tell Jules, author success needs the two P's, persistence and patience. And
Yeah.
when it comes to distributing to the media, you got to be persistent and you have to
Yes.
recognize it's like she said earlier, you may not hear anything and all of a sudden a TV crew shows
Right,
up.
right. And it makes me think of another point too, is if it always helps, word of mouth is a big deal. Ask a friend, hey, do you know anyone who such and such, or maybe someone crossed your path online that turns out to be a reporter for someone. Reach out to them. They're online. They obviously listed who they write for. So go ahead and ask them, send them a message, ask them a question. You do also want to try working on developing a list of people you actually have a relationship with. I know someone who regularly sends content to Westward. She's just built that relationship with them. They'll reach out to her too. She doesn't have to, they'll say, "Hey, we need this. Can you write it?" Right? And so sometimes you might, a relationship like that might happen. So you just don't know. You send it out there and you let it go. You let it blossom.
That's exactly right. And you don't know, but the thing is, you got to do it, everybody. You must
Yeah.
do it. All
Because
right.
if you don't, wait, one more thing. If you don't tell them, who's going to?
Thank you.
No
Okay.
one.
I'm going to write that down to put in my write-up on this. If
Yeah.
you don't, if you
If you
don't
don't
tell them,
tell
who
the
will?
media your story, who will? That's what I
Um,
have on my website, I
all
think.
right. We have 1 minute left. Any one last minute tip here?
Do it. Do it. Build it into your marketing strategy. Brainstorm it with your people, your friends, and just make it happen. You will be surprised what comes
All
back
right.
to you.
So Jules Marie has a terrific website, 33rights.us. She's got a blog, lots of blogs that go in there and put in the search engine and put press release template.
Mm-hmm.
It'll go to the blogs, old blogs, but
Mm-hmm.
oldie but goodie.
Yeah.
And then you can pull down a lot of this wisdom and have kind of a checkpoint list that you can go through. And that's what we
Mm-hmm.
need.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
whole key is, just as she said, you just gotta do it with that.
Yes. Thank you.
Jules, thank you so much for being with us again today.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it. Thanks, Judith.
All right, everyone. And thanks again to our sponsors, NC Graphics and FPGD design. Awesome work. They do not only my own books, but I've worked with over 500 clients. Their fingers on a lot of those books. So they look great. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. Lots more information for your author success for 2025.
Thank you.